found guilty by a jury of citizens, not a witch hunt. His former attorney, the president's former attorney, Michael Cohen, pleaded guilty and implicated the president as directing some of his crimes. What does this mean for the president himself? Cuomo's court is now in session. Jennifer Rogers, former prosecutor in the office that prosecuted Cohen, and Alan Dershowitz, author of, apropos of this discussion, the case against impeaching Trump. How strong is that case now, Professor Dershowitz, in light of what Michael Cohen said about his former boss today?
Well, let me be very clear. I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't have a client. I'm not trying to put lipstick on any body. I'm here to defend civil liberties and to talk about the Constitution and to talk about the presumption of innocence.
So
what we have here is not even an indictment. What we have here is an allocution and a guilty plea, inadmissible in court. Today was not a good day for the president or the White House, but the funeral bells are tolling a lot too early. First, we have a very, very vague law that's being admitted to by Cohen, namely campaign contribution rules. It's not clear that they apply when a president himself or a candidate himself makes the contribution or when a third party makes it as an advance. These are very, very, very close questions.
All right, so hold on. Let's go one point at a time. Let's go one point at a time. Professor, let's go one point at a time. I don't want you to flood the zone. Jennifer Rogers, you get in here. You worked in this case, in this office. One thing we know for sure, we have never heard someone of the standing of Michael Cohen connected to any kind of politician, let alone the president of the United States, stand in open court and say, yeah, I committed some felonies, but he directed me to do it. What is the impact from your perspective?
Well, it's hard to know what the legal impact would be. I mean, as the professor points out, we're probably not going to end up in court with an indictment against Donald Trump on this, in large part because of the Office of Legal Counsel opinion that a president can't be indicted. But it is unprecedented. I mean, never before has someone stood up, sworn under oath that the president directed them to commit a crime, which means, of course, that the president also has committed a crime. And I don't agree that these laws are vague or there's some reason that this contribution to the campaign, which is clear as what it was, is somehow unenforceable. If the president were not the president, he would be indicted very soon if he hadn't been already.
No, that's not true.
Why?
Any candidate has the right to contribute unlimited amounts to his own campaign. Any candidate, it may sound terrible and it may be terrible, but any candidate has the right to pay hush money to somebody to influence the outcome of the election. The problem is
not
that the
if it's
third
unreported.
person does it. But if the well, that's the next question, is whether it has to be reported. And is that a technical violation? You know how many technical violations the Obama campaign committed and every other campaign committed? Failure to report a contribution by the candidate itself is essentially jaywalking. Now, then you have the credibility issue when you have somebody who himself admits that he is a liar. And remember, as Judge Ellis said, what you have is when you squeeze somebody, when you tell somebody, you have two choices. You can die in prison, or you can give me evidence that we can use against somebody else. The temptation not only to sing, but to compose is very great. And it's so easy just to add a little bit of embellishment saying, and the president directed me to do it. By the way, that is not an admission, that is an accusation.
Why is it an embellishment?
Well, that's the point. It's an easy embellishment to make if it didn't happen. Remember,
but how could it not have happened?
That he admits.
But how could it not have happened?
Of course, it's very easy for it not to have happened. It's very easy for it not to have happened. Look,
for
again,
Michael Cohen to have cut deals
but I'm telling
with
you,
women that he wasn't involved with, the president was, and the president never knew anything about it. You heard the tape that we broke on this show, right?
The question is not whether the president knew. It's when the president knew, whether he directed him to do it. Now, the president may have had a standing situation with him. Take rid of all of these problems, get rid of all these problems, pay them, and I'll pay you back. That would not be a crime. So a lot depends on the nuances, and that's where you can easily compose and elaborate and embellish. I'm not saying that happened. I'm just saying that with a presumption of innocence, we don't even have a grand jury indictment here. All we have is a statement and allocution in
Understood.
open court that's not
Understood.
admissible.
But hold on, let's not get
And
carried away with
idea
the
of naming
forum.
somebody as an unindicted co-conspirator
I understand.
is something I complained about even when Nixon was named.
Although,
as an
by the way,
unindicted
they were pretty
co-conspirator.
good today
Very unfair
to the
because
president.
You can't defend yourself.
They actually didn't name him at all today, which I thought was bordering on the absurd.
Well, that was a big. Oh, come on!
how
that was so
scrupulous
absurd.
they were. But they might as well named him.
Did you notice too that the U.S. attorney, when he went out there and described the entire crime, never mentioned, as far as I can remember, never mentioned the fact that Cohen, in his allocution, said, and the president directed him to do
Yeah.
it. It's not clear to me that the U.S. Attorney's Office actually credits that part of it. We'll wait and see if
Right.
they depend on Cohen's
But let's not
credibility
miss something
on
a little bit bigger. I know it's called Cuomo's Court, and I know you guys are also prestigious litigators. However, the idea of a felony, Jennifer, being the bar for when political conduct is good or bad is also absurd. And if it is true that the President of the United States lied to the American people again and again to their face on Air Force One and many times otherwise, saying, in fact, go to my lawyer, Michael Cohen, if you want to know what I knew and didn't know. Now, if Michael Cohen's telling the truth, we know the president has been lying to the American people about criminal conduct. Do you think that would meet
If Cohen's
most
telling the
politicians? We all remember President Ford saying an impeachable offense is what Congress says it is. But what do you think about
And
that in
that's
terms of
wrong.
the scale of impeachment? I know, but that's what he said. Go ahead.
That's a political question,
it's
right?
wrong.
Not a legal question. But I'm not willing to give up on the notion that there's serious crimes being committed here and that they've been committed by the president, if you credit what Cohen said today. And let me make one other point that the professor raised. This was not a cooperation agreement. I mean, he wants to talk about people who have an incentive to lie because they want to get out of a charge or get a lesser sentence. That's not the
come
case here.
on.
He pled guilty.
Be
He's taking his time. He
serious.
is not a
Be
cooperator.
serious.
Professor, he
This
got
is
more
not a
time
cooperation
than anybody
agreement,
else I've
and
seen
it is what
connected
it
to a
is.
president. If he serves the
Be
time they want him to
serious. Come
serve,
on.
we've never seen anybody get as much time as he got.
Of
Fair
course,
point?
of
Well, and
course.
he
Now,
hasn't been
be ser-
sentenced yet,
be-
but
wait a
he
minute, let
pled
me make
guilty
the point.
without a cooperation
That's
agreement.
the point. If he doesn't, he'll get a longer sentence. This is so clearly an implicit cooperation agreement. Just, it's so obvious that every criminal
He's now
defense lawyer
accusing
and
my former
prosecutor will tell
colleagues
you
of serious
that-
misconduct.
Yes, you are.
Without any basis at all.
Oh, come on.
Because that agreement
Everybody
is the entirety
knows-
of the agreement. Michael Cohen stood up and swore to that, and that's what the prosecutors in that
is
office do. There is no
total
basis to believe otherwise.
nonsense. We know that if he cooperates, he will get a lower sentence, and if he doesn't cooperate, he'll get a harsher sentence. Welcome to the real world of 53 years of experience of doing this
All right.
so many
Professor-
times. You cannot look me in the eye and deny that fact. Do you
She is
actually
staring you
look
dead
me
in the eye
and
right
tell
now,
me
by the way,
that
just in
he
case you
won't-
can't see
that
her.
he won't know that
I'm
he
doing my
won't
best.
benefit if he cooperates, and he won't.
Right, but that
then he
doesn't
won't
mean
be
that he is
If they
lying
decide
or
to
that
sign
they
an
are suborning
agreement, then they'll
perjury.
have a new agreement. They
Jennifer
don't have it
Rogers,
now.
final word.
If they decide to sign an agreement with him, a cooperation agreement, that's what they will do. At this time, the only agreement is not a cooperation agreement, it's a plea agreement. He doesn't have a deal, he doesn't have an incentive to lie. At this point, he might even just be subpoenaed to testify. He has no incentive to lie at this point, so there's no basis to call him.
He
that.
has every incentive to give them a
we know
story
this.
they want to hear.
We
That's
know-
the way the game
we
is
know
played.
this.
Don't believe me. Listen to Judge Ellis. He knows it too.
We know
every
this.
defense attorney knows that.
We know this. If Michael Cohen lied today in front of that judge about being directed by the president to commit those crimes, he knows he's going to get more time than he could ever possibly handle.
Nonsense.
So,
if he's
we'll
caught
see.
lying,
Right,
if
that's
he's
right.
caught lying,
That's right.
Not if he lies.
Well-
People lie all the time and get away with it.
Well, we're seeing that in real time every day here, aren't we, Professor? And it's coming from on high. Thank you very much for this legal debate. Appreciate it from both of you.
All right, here we go. President Trump's former personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, pleading guilty to criminal charges of his own, cutting a deal, facing jail time as part of a plea deal with the feds.
This morning, Ainsley is live from the White House. She's going to ask the president about that. But first, as you can see, far screen left, we've got Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz. He's the author of The Case Against Impeaching Trump. He joins us right now from Martha's Vineyard. Professor, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Okay, so Professor, so much is being made this morning about the possibility that the Michael Cohen charges could come back to impact the president. How, first of all, do you see that happening? And is he in any legal peril?
Well, the death knell that they've been sounding on some of the other cable television seems a bit exaggerated. There are many, many steps that have to be taken before the president's in legal jeopardy. First of all, you have to show that it's a crime. If Mr. Trump, the candidate, contributed several $100,000s to his own campaign to pay hush money to women who were either truthfully or falsely alleging against him, that's not a crime. A candidate can contribute as much as he wants. If he directed somebody to do it, intending to pay it back, that's probably not a crime. The election laws are a morass of misdemeanors, felonies, crimes, non-crimes, with exceptions. So you have to get over the legal barrier first. Then you have to get over the credibility barrier. The only evidence that the president did anything that might be unlawful, even arguably, comes from a man who's admitted to be a liar, who has a lawyer-client privilege with the president, unless there are exceptions to it. So there are a lot of barriers between what Cohen said yesterday in court. And remember, there's been no indictment, grand jury. There's only been a statement and allocution by a man who's admitted to criminal conduct. So we're far away from impeachable offense or criminal offense on the part of the president.
I want to ask you, will you elaborate more on that? I know you wrote the book, Case Against Impeaching Trump. Will this election be about impeachment because Mueller was going after him, trying to find Russia collusion? That hasn't happened so far. Are they going to try to use this against him and try to prove that it is illegal, maybe find some loophole and say that it is illegal? Maybe they disagree with you. Is there room for different opinions when it comes to reading that law, or is it just a hard, fast rule that this is not illegal if he did end up knowingly direct Cohen to pay these women?
Well, I think if you read my book, The Case Against Impeaching Trump, you'll see it makes a very persuasive argument that you can't impeach on the basis of minor derelictions or even crimes. You need a high crime and misdemeanor. And, you know, every campaign has violated some technical election law. Yeah, I think there are going to be some Democrats. There's one in Minnesota. There are a few others who are going to run on, give us the House and we'll impeach the president. That's what happened when President Clinton was impeached. And, of course, it ended up being a disaster. It backfired on the Republicans because the Senate refused to remove him. So I think impeachment will be an issue. But I think the law on impeachment, at least according to my research, is fairly clear. And the president has not, at least up to now, committed any impeachable offenses.
Michael Avenatti, the antithesis of you, he's a flamethrower, came out and essentially said, because of this ruling and Cohen's deal that he cut, the stay is going to be released and he's going to have a chance to depose the president. What's your reaction?
It will never happen. Almost all of Avenatti's predictions have not come true. He's also said that the president would resign. The case of Stormy Daniels is a nothing case. I don't even know why it's still in court. The money was paid. The president has been willing to let her say what she wants to say. She's free to say what she wants to say. I don't even understand why the case is in court. The case seems to be in court because Avenatti wants it to be in court. I don't see how it benefits Stormy Daniels.
Well, it's a sensational
this is
headline.
not a case. Yeah, but it's not a case that's going anywhere.
Right.
And I think neither Avenatti nor Stormy Daniels will have any real impact on the outcome of this matter. It's a sideshow.
Okay.
And it's a sideshow that's only there because the media is putting oil on the flames.
Well, Alan, yesterday the media were out in front of the Alexandria Federal Courthouse. Paul Manafort found guilty of 8 counts of bank and tax fraud related to his work as a political consultant years before he was the campaign chairman for Donald Trump. It's interesting, yesterday, or rather earlier today, Lanny Davis said that he would not, his client would not accept a pardon from the President of the United States. But given the President's comments regarding Paul Manafort, where, you know, he feels sorry about him, he got all tangled up in this because he worked for the President, what do you think the odds are that Donald Trump might actually pardon 1 or 2 of these guys? Well,
let me first correct my dear friend Lanny, who is really, really an excellent lawyer. nobody has to accept a pardon. The Supreme Court, in an opinion by Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, said a pardon is a presidential act, and the person pardoned doesn't have to accept it or reject it. It's there. The pardon has the impact without regard to what the person who gets it wants. I think there is some possibility he may pardon Manafort. The language he used yesterday, a tragedy, Manafort's a good person, he worked for other people, certainly leads to that possibility the way George H.W. Bush pardoned Caspar Weinberger. I don't think there's going to be a pardon for Cohen. I think Cohen and the Trump team are in an antagonistic position, and the Trump team's approach is going to be to try to discredit Cohen. So I think there are going to be two very different approaches to Manafort and Cohen.
Yeah, I'm sure he's really upset with Cohen. I'm sure, as you mentioned, he said yesterday he was sad about Manafort, but wow, Cohen really turned his back on him and is now saying he lied and then hired Hillary Clinton's good friend.
And he taped their conversation before he was even president.
The other important point is, even if Cohen wants to testify against Trump, he can't testify as to any conversations, taped or not taped, that are covered by the lawyer-client privilege. What he's trying to do is claim that the direction by the president comes outside the privilege because it was illegal and part of the crime-fraud exception. But if, in fact, the president directed him to do it and intended to pay it back, that may not be a crime. So there's a question about whether or not even that testimony is proper or lawfully admitted under the lawyer-client privilege. These are complicated issues. We're far from knowing the answers.
Alan, you used to be retired. Now we have you working harder than ever. Alan Dershowitz, thanks so much.
Thank you.